I see my face on the screen. I think we're live. Hi everyone, it's great to see you. For this boot camp, we started about 4 weeks ago. We're in session 4, the 4th week. And this live event is basically giving you tools to get more comfortable with your instrument and accessible hopefully for everyone. There's a little bit of everything, and we spend the first 3 weeks talking about alternate picking. And this is an interactive event, which means that you can, of course, ask your questions in the chat, but you can also get live with us. And if you want to, if you have a webcam and you want to demonstrate something or ask a particular question, you're more than welcome to do that. We love questions here. We love to see you. And Jason is going to post a link in the chat, and that's the link so that you can call in if you have a question. And love to have you on the event. So the last 4 sessions were about alternate picking, which is just down, up, down, up, down, up, regardless of the strings you're using, regardless of the area of the fretboard. It's a consistent down, up with our right hand. And the goal so far has been to increase your tempo, your own speed, 5 beats per minute in between each session. And at the end of every one of the last 3 sessions, we had an assignment for you to do, which was something more interesting, maybe musically, than the exercises, the drills that we've been going through. And last week's assignment was, again, an alternate picking thing. We were talking about switching strings, and hopefully that's going well. And if anyone wants to call in and ask a question, if you had trouble during the week, if you have a particular question, just let's get that out of the way before we start today's session, which is a little different. We're not going to do some real picking techniques. We're going to use the legato technique, which can mean 2 things, really. Playing legato in the classical world means to play smoothly. And so it's just, it's not as harsh as, as something harsh. And in guitar, in order to reproduce that smooth feel, we're going to take out anything harsh. And if you listen to what we've been working on before, all those exercises, they were the harshness came from the pick, the attack of the pick. And if I take out the notes, you would hear that kind of harshness, which can be great for certain, for certain styles of music, certain sections of a song, but playing legato has its use too, and that's what we're going to do. So in order to play legato, we're basically going to remove any of these alternate picking, like kind of strikes that we have. We're going to remove that. In order to do that, we're going to rely on the left hand to act as a pick, basically. So as you know, if we want to trigger a note on the guitar, we're going to have to trigger a string. We're going to have that string vibrate. And we can do that with the fingers or with our pick. We can also do it with the left hand by tapping on a note on a string like that. We can do that exclusively too with actual tapping with the right hand and the left hand. That kind of thing. So that's what legato is, using the left hand to trigger those notes. So the left hand is going to have 2 purposes. It's going to act as a pick, which is going to trigger the string, and it's also going to act as a decision maker as far as the pitch. It's going to direct the pitch that you want to play by following patterns or shapes or scales. So 2 purposes here. And for that, there's a series of exercises that we're going to go through with a metronome. And before we get started, it looks like we do have a question.
We do have a couple questions from Mr. Mark E. I'm going to go ahead and put the first one up, and we can address the other one afterwards. These are kind of general, so I figured they could help some people out before we get into the exercises.
Yeah.
He asks, do you always have the pad of your thumb against the guitar? I find that I use the side of my thumb along the back of my fretboard at times. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's definitely okay. My philosophy is that if it doesn't hurt and if it sounds okay, it's okay. And your technique, your position might be fine for you, not fine for someone else, but I don't think you should necessarily fix the position of your thumb or anything else for that matter if you don't have pain and if it doesn't sound horrible. If you do have one of these, that's when you have to maybe adjust, but it's completely okay. And my thumb is usually in the back of the fretboard too, kind of acting as an anchor. So it's totally okay. It's kind of like along, there we go. Sorry, I went too fast here. And yeah, it's kind of always in the back of the guitar like that. So yeah, great question. I wouldn't fix it.
All right, we have another question also from Marky. It's a right thumb question. When you play so slow, I can see your last thumb joint articulating some. I find I derive most of my picking motion from my wrist. Should I be using more thumb motion?
So same exact answer here. We're all made differently. So yes, my thumb kind of moves like that a little bit. And it's not really something conscious. It's something that I just do. And it never really prevented me to play the way that I hear in my head. So I never had to fix it. There was no pain, and it always sounded okay. So definitely, I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, that's all the questions for now. We did just want to remind you guys, if anyone wants Dave to take a look at your technique from the first 3 weeks, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, you have to wait until the very end of the lesson.
Yep.
If nobody wants to call in now, we are going to go ahead and get started with the lesson.
Great. What do you think of the magic voice that comes from nowhere? I love it.
Yeah, I'm Wallman's
Doing a good
second
job.
personality, actually.
Yeah.
Hey, can I, just for one moment,
Yeah.
hesitate to ask the chat room a question? What do you guys think? Are you guys glad to have Mr. Wallman back for these sessions? We're just curious. So
It's going to be a lot of no's.
give us some
That's
feedback
going to
in
ruin the
chat
show.
if you'd like. And Wallman's going to get going with the lesson, so be sure to get your guitars in hand.
All right. So legato can be played really with acoustic guitars or electric, but most of the time it's going to be electric. But if you have an acoustic, stick with us. You're going to get a workout, and that's always good. Quality time with your instrument is always a good thing. So let's get started with the mechanics of legato. We'll just talk a little bit about how it's done, and then we'll go through the different exercises with different speeds. So as I said, legato is really primarily a left-hand thing, a left-hand motion. And there are two motions. There's ascending pitches. So I'm going from a low area of the fretboard to a higher one. And in order to do that, I need the string to start. I need to trigger the string. I'm going to do that with my pick for the first one. Because if I just like did a hammer from nowhere, it's not always as clean as we want. So I'm going to use my pick for that first note of that string. And then all the other notes are going to be played, triggered with the left hand. In this example here, this case, I'm on the second string, 5th fret with my index. That's the note that is triggered with the pick. And then I'm going to use this shape, index, ring, pinky. And in this particular case, it would be frets 5, 7, 9. And we're just going to get used to that movement, ascending the notes. And the important part here is to have as much pressure on each note as the previous note that you played. You don't want to have the first note, kind of loud, and then the others are kind of timid like that. You don't want that. You want really consistent volume within the notes. So that's for ascending notes, and that can work with any kind of shapes. Descending notes is a little bit different. You might be tempted to think that descending notes is the exact opposite, where I'm triggering the first note. And in this case, again, I'm on the second string, frets 8, 7, 5. And then just lifting off those fingers. But that's not really what legato is, because if you just lift it off the finger, you're always going to have the first note pretty hard in volume, and the others are going to be way lower. So we need to counteract that. We need to increase the volume of these lifted notes here. And for that, instead of just lifting my pinky, in this case, straight from the fretboard, I'm not going to lift it. I'm going to pinch that second string. So the motion is not at the opposite of the neck. It's kind of like brushing towards the ground kind of acting as a pick itself, plucking the string. And if you're not used to that movement, it might be actually easier to try it on the first string because you don't have any other strings below that that are going to prevent you to pluck that string. So why don't we do this? We're going to use that same shape, frets 5, 7, 8, on the first string, and we're going to try to do a repeating movement where I'm starting from the 5th, going higher. That's called hammering. Your fingers are acting like little hammers, and then I'm going to pluck off of these strings, pluck, and I'm going to do a continuous movement like that. My pick is not involved at all. And try to focus on just hearing one note at a time. You don't want to have all the other strings ringing. And try to have as much consistency in the volume between all of these notes. The first note should sound as loud as all the others. And because I'm playing this slow, you can really hear the pluck off when I'm descending. And then try different volumes like that. You might want to try different shapes. Maybe instead of 5, 7, 8, we can try 5, 8. I'm sorry, 5, 6, 8. So you're kind of building calluses here on the fingers, or rebuilding calluses on your fingers. And then why don't we try this shape, 5, 7, 9. So there's an extension here between the 7 and the 9, and that's index, ring, pinky. So that's what legato is. Any questions so far on that?
Yeah, we do have a question that's actually related to this. It's from It's Rockin'. He wants to know, is the pressure of the finger down controlling the volume?
When you are ascending, yes. When you're ascending a pattern, so from low note to high notes, that's what's controlling the volume. When you're descending, it's the note you're plucking off. So in this case, if I'm going 8, 7, 5, the pluck needs to be kind of strong in order to have the same type of volume. If you are home and you're playing with an electric, try the overdrive. It's way easier. And if you find that adding a lot of gain, a lot of distortion, kind of triggers all the other strings around, then what you can do is grab like a sock or something and attach it to the headstock right here. Some people say it's cheating, but it's not. I don't think it's cheating because guitar is not a sport. The goal is to use this as an instrument, as a tool to tell your musical story. So no matter it doesn't matter. Unless you see this as a sport, then maybe don't use a sock. But for those who don't, you can start by using a sock, and that'll kind of help you a little bit. And you'll be surprised at how many artists in this studio use like something here, whether it's a sock or a bandana or something to tie here to clean things up when they record. And that's okay. That's really okay to do that. All right, let's get started right away with exercise 1, which uses that technique that we just saw. And hopefully you can see that on the screen. It's kind of a long exercise, but don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of repetitions in there. We're going to use the 3 different shapes that we talked on in week 1. And these shapes are movable on the fretboard. And just a quick reminder, the shapes involve all 4 fingers. One of the shapes is going to be index, ring, pinky, and we're considering that we have 1 finger per fret. So if my index is on fret number 5, that's going to be index, ring, pinky, which is 5, 7, 8, like that. Another shape is going to be 5, 6, 8, and that involves index, middle, pinky. And the third shape is the extension, where we're going to use index, ring, pinky, but there is an extension between that ring and the pinky. And these 3 shapes are found over and over on the fretboard when we're playing scales. So that's what that exercise is. If you look at the first line, and you look at what's above the tab, the standard notation here, there's 4 groups of 6 notes. Those are 16 triplets, 6 notes per beat. So on every beat, we're going to try the metronome. You will have 6 notes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's take a look at that first line. You see that there's some repeating ideas. The first 6 notes are using the first 2 strings. And starting on the second string, we have 5, 7, 9, and 5, 7, 9. The first 3 notes, you see there's like a tie that ties them together. That's the sign for the legato. So we are playing that first, we're striking that very first note on the second string, and it's a downward motion. So the pick is going down and then legato. Then we're going to do the same exact thing on the first string with an upward motion, up and then legato. And we're repeating that 4 times. And that's for that first line. The second line is exactly the same thing as far as the technique, the motion, the direction of the pick, except that instead of using that shape 5, 7, 9, we're going to use 7, 9, 10. So we're starting our shape on the second note, which was 7. And 7, 9, 10, that's the shape. 4 times. On the third line, we have 9, 10, 12. Same exact thing. I'm starting with a downstroke and upstroke. Downstroke, upstroke. And then I'm going to go back to the previous one, which was 7, 9, 10. The idea here is to make a big loop. So once we play these 4 different lines, we're going to go back to line 1 and we just play it in a loop. I'm going to play this really slow. And I'll pick a really slow tempo. If you have a metronome, we're going to start this at maybe 60 beats per minute, which is something like this. So within that, we're going to have to play 6 notes, which is going to have this kind of feel. And because we're just learning the exercise, we're gonna cut that in 2. So instead of 6 notes per beat, we're going to have 3 notes per beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So on every beat, we're going to start a new string, which is a legato section. So let's get started. 1, 2, 3. This is exercise 1. Second shape. Next shape. This is 9, 10, 12. We're going to go back to 7, 9, 10. Do that one more time. Go back on line 1. There's 5, 7, 9. Second shape, 7, 9, 10. You see that I'm not picking many notes. I'm just picking the first note of each string. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. This was 3 notes per beat. And if I do 6 notes per beat, it's going to be twice as fast. And try to keep a steady volume in between every note. Okay, and that should kind of help your stretches too. You should start to feel warmth. We've talked about warmth in your hands since day 1, since week 1, and that's a good thing. The warmth is a good thing, but you've got to be careful that that warmth doesn't really become pain. There's different kinds of pains. There's the warm pain, which kind of feels good, and there's the pain, which you need to take a break, massage, go drink some water or whatever. But it's really important to make that distinction, and hopefully by now you're starting to feel what feels good, what is natural, and what just kind of hurts. Any questions on this?
Yeah, we do have a couple questions here. First of all, can you move your strap just a little bit? It's bumping on the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, we have a few questions. Some of these are not necessarily about the exercise, but they're all related. The first one comes from Silmarel, and he or she says, in doing the pinky stretch, I have to move my hand a little. Will that mean slow play?
Not necessarily. It depends what you mean by moving your hand. If you want to get on, that's a great time to do that. But if you don't, I understand too. But I think that it's natural that your hand moves a little bit. So, like, there's a little adjustment for me too. Especially in the thumb. The thumb kind of moves a little bit. So if my thumb is like this, when I do the stretch, it kind of reaches towards the middle of the neck more. And that's normal, I think. So it's okay, a little bit of movement. And I think you're going to self-correct as you're increasing the tempo naturally. So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay, the next question is from EDW Dos. He says, during the pull-off, my notes sound muffled. Is this due to lack of calluses?
It could be. It could be a lack of calluses. It could be also that you've got to exaggerate the plucking the string part, where it's really exaggerated like that. It's not just up and down like that. If I just do that, all you're hearing really is like, that's the biggest note you're hearing. It's really got to be a pluck off. So both really are heard. Just keep working with it. And also what can help is not only a little bit of distortion, but also a compressor. A compressor pedal is great to kind of smoothen things out. It's going to basically adjust the volume of your notes so that there's less gap between the quiet notes and the loud notes. And that's a great tool to have too. It's not cheating. It's just part of tone too. So that might help a little bit. But just keep working at it.
Okay, in regards to the last question from Silmarel, he says, I can't reach it cleanly without moving the hand. So he has to move his hand to get the pinky note.
Okay. Is that this? Are you getting the same problem higher on the fretboard? Where you have to move your hand? Or is it, I'm guessing it's easier higher on the fretboard because there's less gap. The distance is a little bit easier. And I'm trying to think what I'd do.
So would you just fix that by practicing the exercises higher up and then slowly moving down the neck
Yeah.
as your hand gets stronger and more flexible?
Yeah, I think I would do that. It's a good suggestion from the magic voice.
From the magic voice, yes. All right. It just so happens we actually have a lot of questions tonight,
Great.
guys. This is pretty incredible. BD Siegel asks, I'm on an acoustic and it may be especially challenging, but are there any mechanics that can help to get volume out of your pinky, especially on the stretch?
Yeah, acoustic is a tough thing for sure. I don't think you're ever going to get really the same use of legato on acoustic. And if you're on acoustic and you know that that's your main instrument, if acoustic is your main instrument, what I would do is go through the drills and instead of really worrying about the tone of the notes, the volume, just worry about the positions and that the placement of your hand, of your fingers, that it is really at the sweet spot of every fret. So that, it's not right on the fret, because that doesn't produce a really clean tone, but just where it's the purest possible. And if the legato part is an issue on acoustic, which it kind of is, just focus more on the finger, on the placement of the fingers, like that. And take advantage of this course to maybe review some scales, some melodic ideas instead of the actual physical mechanics of legato.
Okay, Dave, we have 2 more questions, but those are actually kind of more general, so we're going to hold off on them for
Okay.
now. So you're free to proceed.
Great. So why don't we go through this exercise again? We're going to increase the tempo a little bit. And this is exercise 1, so maybe you can get the tab on if it's useful for you guys. You tell us. And we'll do this at 65 beats per minute. If you have a metronome, rewatch this video and write down those tempos and see what feels good to you, what doesn't feel good to you. We're going to go through this again. Here's the tempo. We'll do this at 16th triplets beats per minute, which is 6 notes per beat. And this is the subdivision that we'll have. This should be locked in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second position. Third. I'll repeat that whole thing. As far as the picking goes, I'm just kind of alternating. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Just look at my right hand, that's what it's doing. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. But really, I'm not picking many notes. And you kind of hear the difference between this, which is legato, and this, which is really picked. I'm picking everything here. I'll stay on that first shape so you can hear the difference. Legato, picked. It's harsher. Legato is smoother. If you close your eyes, you should be able to tell if I'm legato playing or picking. Okay, so that's for exercise 1. How about we increase the speed a little bit? We were at 65 beats per minute, and we're going to try this at 75 beats per minute. And we'll see what happens. So 10 more beats per minute. That's our subdivision. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're going to do the same exact thing, but instead of using the first 2 strings, we're going to use strings 2 and 3. And the reason we're doing that is that not only are these 2 strings surrounded by other strings, so we're going to have to be careful muting this, and also because it's going to kind of break something in our ears, but not forever. It's just that it's going to sound a little off, and that's going to force us to really be concentrated on the technique and the tempo instead of just relying on our ears, which you should really most of the time rely on your ears, but sometimes it's good to break that, especially for mechanical exercises. So same exact tempo, our subdivision. We're on strings 2 and 3, same exact thing as far as the frets, 3, 4. Sounds a little off, but that's okay. That's on purpose. Should feel the stretch. You got one more time. Then we'll move on to the original shape, which was strings 1 and 2. Okay, let's switch to strings 1 and 2. Do it one more time. Same exact thing. As we do this, eventually we're going to switch again. This time we'll use strings 3 and 4. One more time. If you like this, you can watch it again because it's being recorded. You can go to the archives and try this exercise again. Kind of making up on the spot. Strings 2 and 3. Requires a lot of concentration. One more time. Definitely feel the burn and stretches. And it's actually harder at slower speeds. Okay. Great.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
I have a very helpful question. Somebody wants to know how fast can you play this exercise? What's your max speed?
Oh, I was scared that people would ask me that.
Uh-oh.
I don't know, but let's try.
200 beats a minute.
No, I'm not. Okay, the truth is I'm not a very fast player, but do I need to be? So I'm gonna try this at 995 beats per minute. I'm joking. Well, I don't know. Let's gradually increase, okay? How about we try at 120? So the subdivision, 6 notes per beat, and I'll just do it on the strings 1 and 2. I'm sweating bullets here. I don't know if you can see on the thing. But the thing is, it's actually easier to play this fast than slow. Because if you do it slow, you have time to hear all the imperfections in your playing and like this volume thing between the notes, like that. You don't have, your ear doesn't have time to realize that this note is not as loud as the others. So once you get the mechanics like that, it's really easy to go fast than slow. Let's go back to a comfortable speed.
You're being taunted for saying you weren't a fast player, just so you're aware.
I got really lucky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Any other questions? We're going to move to exercise 2 soon. Unless you have questions.
Yeah, we've got one question from Southern Cash. He says, can you show how many fingers are going down in one beat in slow motion, or as slow of motion as you can?
Yep. So let's do, let's try 55. It might be too slow. Maybe not. I think that's pretty good because the subdivision is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it even slower so that you can really see. Maybe 45 beats per minute. So the subdivision, it's harder to really lock into a slow tempo. So there's 6 notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 3 notes on the second string, and then 3 notes on the first string, exactly the same frets. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same exact frets on both strings. I'll do it maybe without the metronome, and I'll play 1 beat. This is 1 beat. That was 1 beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I count my 3, 4. Oh, sorry, I can't. I can't concentrate with the cameras here. But that's 1 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6 notes per beat. Does that help? I hope it helped.
Seems like it helped. I'll let you know if he has any further questions. Otherwise, that's all we have that's related to this exercise.
Great. Let's take a look at exercise 2, which is basically the same thing, but this time we're going to do descending notes. So when we're ascending notes with legato, that's called hammer-on. Like I mentioned before, the fingers are acting like little hammers. They're hammering on the string. Descending notes is called a pull-off, which kind of makes sense. It's kind of like you're pulling the string. Your fingers are acting like little picks. You could call it strike-off. You're striking the string. So same exact mechanics, but not the same exact mechanics. Same exact frets, I should say, reversed, but this time we're using pull-offs. So we're using the same exact shape. The first line is using this extension shape with frets 5, 7, 9, except that we're reversing that. So we're starting on 9, pulling off to 7, pulling off to 5, and then same exact thing on the second string. We're going to do that 4 times. The right hand is doing down, up, down, up. And then the second line, the same movement, same technique, but this time with frets 10, 9, 7. So we're kind of following the same exact scale that we were using in exercise 1. The next one is 12, 10, 9. And then finally, line 4 is 10, 9, 7. Now, the reason why I'm doing down, up with my pick on each starting point of every string is just to have some kind of a consistency, down, up. And that kind of helps, especially at faster tempo, to kind of know where you are naturally. Because if I did random down, 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 up, there's no consistency, but down, up all the time just kind of helps keep track of where you are. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Notice my thumb, I just saw that on the camera. See, my thumb is kind of all over the place. It doesn't really affect the sound or the pain. So if this feels natural to me to have my thumb wrapped around, that's okay. If it was more natural having it in the back of the guitar like that, which it's not very comfortable to me. It kind of has to grab. Whatever's comfortable to you is the answer, as long as there's no pain and as long as it sounds okay. So just keep that in mind all the time. If your technique is not exactly like the player you admire, that's okay. It's what sounds, with the outcome, that's what's important. So let's try that exercise with the metronome. We'll start at a comfortable speed. How about a really comfortable speed? We'll start at 50 beats per minute. That's our tempo. The subdivision is 6 notes per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second shape. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Do that one more time. Okay, if you are using I just thought of this, if you're using a multi-effect box or pedals or anything like that, kill the reverb and the delay, because that's going to mess you up probably in your timing. It's good to be really dry, even though it might not sound as good as you want. It's really good to have no delay in these exercises when you're practicing that kind of thing. Looks like we have a question.
We do. Our good friend Southern Cash has returned. He wants to know, when descending legato, should the index finger always be down at the same time the pinky hits the fretboard?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Actually, yes, but even more so than that, the lowest note in your legato run, which is, in this case, the index, and all the exercises we do, is always on the fretboard. It's never going up. It's not doing that. It's always down on the fretboard, if that's your question. Is that your question? Does that make sense? It's always down. I'm never lifting it. It might look like I'm lifting it a little bit, but I'm not. I'm just like bending the string a little bit, because when I'm doing the pluck off, the string bends a little bit, but it's always down, anchored on the fretboard. Hope that makes sense, I hope. So it's always down. Anything else? Okay. Let's increase that tempo a little bit. And this is going to be an endurance test. We'll do this at 65 beats per minute. So the subdivision, maybe a little faster, I don't know. We'll do something like that. We're going to do that exercise once. So there's 4 lines. And that's on strings 1 and 2. Once we did that, we'll use strings 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4, and then 4 and 5, and we'll use all sets of strings like that. I'll try to coach you as we go. So first we'll start on strings 1 and 2. 2, 3, 4. Second shape. Third. Back to the second shape. Now strings 2 and 3. Same exact frets, but different strings. Strings 3 and 4. Strings 4 and 5. It's quite a stretch there. So my thumb kind of like travels around. Whenever I have to stretch, it's kind of going back on the fretboard. Especially when using lower strings, because if the thumb was there, it would prevent everything. Okay, so when you're practicing these on your own terms, I would suggest maybe 20 minutes a day. These exercises should be just trigger points, starting points to develop any other variants of that exercise you can think of. We used this area of the fretboard, but you can try it lower. That's going to really work out your stretches, or higher. It's going to be a little bit easier as far as reaching these notes, but just try to vary a little bit on these exercises.
And we have a question specifically related to this exercise. Cork70, and actually a couple other people in the chat too, would like to know if you're barring both of the strings with your first finger when changing back and forth.
Yeah, great question. Kind of. Actually, it depends. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. If I'm playing on strings, on the first 2 strings, I usually am. But if I'm playing on any other strings, I usually have to adjust a little bit. And here's why. It has to do with the cleanness of your playing. When you're playing, especially at high gain, you want to avoid any other strings to be heard. And that happens with the palm of the right hand. The palm is kind of acting as a muting device for any lower strings. So it's kind of always resting here on the string so that those lower notes are kind of like stopped if they were to be triggered by mistake. And you can see that, you know, my palm is just resting there on those lower strings. As far as the higher strings, well, if I'm playing on strings 1 and 2, there's no higher strings than 1 and 2. So I can bar completely with my index here. I can do that. And that's usually when I'm barring both strings at the same time. But if I'm playing on strings, let's say 3 and 4, well, there are 2 areas of the fretboard I need to mute. I need to control on top of the strings I'm playing. So we'll take these 2 middle strings, 3 and 4. Anything lower than that, so strings 5 and 6, the low range notes, are taken care of by the palm of my right hand. It's kind of resting there. So that's for the palm. As far as the higher strings, strings 2 and 1, those are not going to be muted by the palm because, well, my palm doesn't have a hole in there. I can't do that. But they're muted by the flesh underneath the index. It's kind of resting there, acting as a muting device. And if you look at the bottom left window there, that view, you can kind of see that flesh touching slightly strings 1 and 2. I'm not putting any pressure on it, but I'm touching slightly so that if by mistake strings 2 or 3 were triggered, they're going to be stopped. They're not going to ring out. Whereas if I put pressure, they're ringing out. I don't want that. So that's why you can kind of see that if I'm playing this lick on strings 3 and 4, my index kind of has to move so that the muting part below the index is muting any string it needs to mute. And if I'm playing string 4, I've got to mute with below the index strings 1, 2, and 3. And that's why you kind of see that my index is kind of moving. I'm not doing just a plain bar there. I hope that answered your question. A lot of this you kind of analyze as you're playing, but when you're actually playing the exercise, you don't want to think too much about it. You just spend time on your own, like trying to get the position right, trying to put the muting right, and then when you're playing, don't think about it. It should come kind of automatically. Okay, let's move on. So we've got the mechanics right, and you know that you can kind of expand on that on your own. Exercise 3 is going to be very similar, but this time we're going to combine alternate picking with legato. And if you look at that first line, we see 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9 again, which was exactly like the previous exercise, that first line. And then on the second line, we're shifting shapes, 7, 9, 10. But instead of having the first 3 notes legato, we're alternate picking. So down, up, down, and then on the next string, up, and we're triggering that legato. Down, up, legato. So that we have a combination of the harshness of the pick and also the smoothness of the legato. So you can kind of have both at the same time. We're going to try this exercise at a faster tempo, and then you can go back and start it slow if you want during your weekly practice. But let's try this at 95 beats per minute just to see how it sounds. So again, the first string is triggered alternate picking, and the last 3 notes are legato, like that. That's our subdivision. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of gives you a different sound. You can really hear where those picked notes are. And then you can experiment with different strings, different areas of the fretboard. Try and be creative. like that. If you're into, if you like John Petrucci, he uses that a lot. If you were to slow down his licks, it's not always straight alternate picking. A lot of it is combining some alternate picking with the legato. A lot of players do that, and it kind of adds the smoothness to the harder edge too at the same time. So that's combining both, and this brings us to exercise 4, which is basically the reversed way. Instead of doing hammer-ons, we're going to do pull-offs. So we are, if I take this this first line, 9, 7, 5, I'm going to alternate pick these first 3 notes, and then the last 3 are going to be legato. Like that. And on the second line, it's frets 10, 9, 7. It's really harder to do at slower speed for some reason, but at higher speed it's a little bit easier. Let's try this with the metronome. Here's our metronome. We're at 90. Let's try it a little slower. Let's try it at 85 beats per minute. That's our subdivision. And here's the... Yeah, sorry, messed up there. I'm human, of course. See, I need to work. I need to watch these videos again. After a while of doing this, you kind of lock into the technique that you need to do, and it gets more and more natural. But that's combining alternate picking and legato, and you can hear that in the background. You kind of hear that. It's a combination of harshness and smoothness with the legato. Unless we have any questions, I want to show you your homework for next week.
No questions right now.
Okay. So the homework is a sequence. It's kind of in 2 parts. There's an ascending part and a descending part that is going to use both legato and alternate picking. And you can see the alternate pick notes by those symbols there on the top. One is for downstroke. It looks kind of like a reversed, unclosed rectangle type of thing. The other one is a triangle, and that's for upstrokes. So you can see that there's really a good combination of both. And although there's a lot of notes, and you can download the tab if it's too hard to read here. You can download all the tabs for all these exercises. There's a section for that. But although it's a longer exercise, there's a logic behind it. So you don't need to memorize everything. You just need to understand the logic. So we're going to understand the logic by just studying that first line. First thing we need to know is that this is part of the major scale. And this is an A major scale. And if you're kind of unclear on major scales, you can go back to week 2 where I showed you some charts, or you can also go into the courses of this website of JamPlay, and you'll see some lessons on the modes. But this was included in one of the previous weeks. Just a quick reminder of that shape that we're going to use. It goes in pairs. So the 6th string and the 5th string go together, and it's also called the Ionian mode, for those of you who are wondering. So the first 2 strings, or strings 6 and 5, are going to be 5, 7, 9 as far as the frets. So no matter what, if we were to play a note on the 6th string, it will fall on fret 5, 7, or 9. Same for the 5th string. On the 4th string, it's going to be fret 6, 5, 7. And on the next two strings, strings 2 and 1, it's going to be on frets 7, 9, 10. You kind of recognize these shapes that we've used in the exercises. So altogether, from the low E string to the high E string, we have frets 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9 again. It goes in pairs. 6, 7, 9, twice. 7, 9, 10, twice. You can descend that. 10, 9, 7. 9, 7, 6, twice. 9, 7, 5. That's the scale we're going to use. Notice that there are 3 notes per string. That's going to help us when we take a look at the logic behind this sequence. And let's look at the first 6 notes. We're just ascending the scale. It's all alternate picking. Down, up, down, up, down, up. The next 6 notes are descending what we just ascended with a little twist at the end. We're going to reverse the last 2 notes. So instead of descending straight forward, which would be 9, 7, 5, 9, 7, 5, it's going to be 9, 7, 5, 9, 5, 7. And these are legato. So you might want to just try to get used to that movement. So if I combine the first 12 notes together, the first 6 notes and the next 6 notes, we have alternate picking ascending 6 notes, down, up, down, up, down, up, and then descending 6 notes, legato, with a switch in the last 2 notes. So if I loop that, once you understand the logic behind those first 12 notes, the rest is exactly the same. The only difference is that instead of starting on the low E string, the 6th string, we're starting on the 5th. Following the pattern of the scale, of course. And we're going to end on that 10th fret, 2nd string, and that's, you see that on the 3rd line there, that 10, isolated 10, that's what it is. So I kind of broke those sections apart from each other just to show you that there is consistency there. But the goal is to tie everything together so that there's no silences. Like that. So let's try that with the metronome. And when you're home or later during the week when you're practicing, you can start at any tempo you want. It doesn't matter. Your goal throughout the week is going to be to increase 5 beats per minute from the end of this session to the beginning of the next one. Let's do this really slow. We'll do this at 750 beats per minute. No, we'll try that at 60 beats per minute. Okay. That's our tempo. In the subdivision, 6 notes per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's maybe a little faster than I thought we would be. It's right, really slow, 45 beats per minute. That's our tempo, the subdivision. There we go. Got to kind of lock in. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 4. One more time. And then reversed, we're going to descend that. The only difference is that we're using pull-offs. So we're starting with the 6 notes alternate picked. And then hammer-ons. Actually, yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah, hammer-ons. This is the pull-off at the end, like that. So if I play the full thing. And with the metronome, descending. Okay, so that's your homework for next week. We're going to try this at faster speed, and we're going to ascend the full thing and descend the full thing. And then I'll leave you with a few things to do for next week. Let's try this at 95 beats per minute. That's our subdivision. A few errors there. I should, if I was practicing on my own, I should slow down and then gradually increase the speed just to really know for sure which frets to hit with your left hand. And that's what you should do. You should start at a really comfortable speed first, that to remove any hesitation in your fingers as far as which frets to hit. Get all the mechanics down and write down the tempo at which you feel the most comfortable. And you really have to do the act of writing it down, because you can refer back to it in a month or two and see, where you were. And then throughout the week, stay at that tempo for the first 3 days when you're practicing this particular thing for 20 minutes a day at least. And then try to increase the tempo 3 beats per minute. And try that for a couple days. And then for the last few days that you have until the next session, you try to reach that 5 beats per minute mark that we should increase every week. So once we're done with this live session, I really want you to make the effort. If you have a metronome, write down that tempo where you're comfortable. And next week, your goal is at least 5 extra beats per minute. That's your job for this week. So practice well. And we're going to hang out a little bit here if you have any questions regarding this or fingering. And there should be the call-in link too if you want to get on and chat a little bit.
Jason's going to post that. We do have 2 questions from earlier that weren't really related to ask now. The first one is from Darklink1697. How do you make things sound clean when tapping with 3 fingers while still holding the pick with the thumb?
So I'm guessing we're talking about 3 fingers of the right hand when you're tapping, probably. My advice is not going to be from real world experience, because I never really worked on the extended tapping thing. But if that's what you're doing, I would just analyze absolutely everything you're doing. Take time to really build calluses in your muscles, and isolate any difficulty that you have, and really pinpoint that difficulty. Like if you feel that your ring finger when you're tapping notes is kind of weak, develop exercises using only that, or primarily that ring finger. For example, this is something that I would do. Just the ring finger. Really isolate whatever is creating problems and pinpoint that and develop exercise with that.
I don't know if you remember Sil Morel from earlier, who was talking about the pinky stretch.
Yeah.
He says, my pinky, it's just not going to happen. Should I quit?
No. No, definitely not. If it doesn't happen, you can try to just not use it and maybe try to use the index, middle, ring, if that's comfortable to you, more comfortable. But don't completely leave the pinky out. When you're actually playing, like when you're recording a song or you're playing for someone or with a band, then do whatever feels right to you as far as the fingers. But when you're working alone home, still work on that pinky because it will come eventually. It's just awkward right now maybe, but I think it will develop the strength that you need to have. Don't worry about it too much though.
All right, we've got a question from AK 2012. I'm having trouble between the strings 2 and 3 on the descending run. Can you go over that again?
Yeah. That's probably the problem that you're having between strings 2 and 3 is probably the same problem you might have between 4 and 5 because the shape changes a little bit. So I'll do it really slow, and I'll actually isolate that section. And was that descending, I think? Can't remember. Ascending? Was that
Yeah, the
specified?
descending.
Okay. So yeah, so it's different shapes there. It's really involving all 4 fingers. That's probably why. Let's take a look at the fingering first. On string 2, the shape is 7, 9, 10. So that involves the pinky. Or if that's too difficult, to try it without the pinky. But I would recommend the pinky. So pinky, ring, index, pinky, middle, index. And I think that's the difficulty right there. Switching shapes. Not only are we switching shapes, 10, 9, 7, 9, 7, 8, but we're also switching kind of areas of the fretboard. The area of the fretboard on the second string covers the zone between frets 7 and 10, and string 3 covers 1 fret lower. And so what I find useful, once you got the actual fingering, the fingers used right, which is middle, ring, index, pinky, ring, index, pinky, middle, index. Once you have that, it's the transition between this note and this note. Between the last note of the second string, which is the 7th fret, index, and the first note of the 3rd string, which is pinky on the 9. What's happening, my wrist kind of like shifts like that. It kind of rolls. Hopefully you can see that. It's kind of rolling off. So isolate that and just practice that transition and that roll of the wrist before even adding the legato part. I think that's going to help. And same thing happens between strings 4 and 5 because there is a little switch of positioning. On the 4th string, my index is on fret number 6. And on the 5th, it's on the 5th, like that. So the wrist kind of rolls off like that. Should help.
Okay, we have another question from Wei Chi J. He wants to know if Dave could explain how to get that nice vibrato with the pinky.
Never thought about it. Let's see. That one? Probably. That's kind of a habit, but I think you're talking about that. I think the secret... Sorry, I'm trying to... There we go. That shiny thing. This thing right here is... what helps is to really grab the neck of the guitar like that. With the thumb wrapped around. It's going to give you more control. It's really grabbing it like this. And the pinky, I'm really doing a bend. It's really a little bend here. My index, see, is kind of flat because, where's my index? Right here. My index is flat because it is muting the higher strings at the same time. So that's always the case. Just kind of bending slightly like that. Like that. So it's more of a bend than a vibrato.
Okay, we've got another question here. It's not quite in the board yet, so I'll just read it out to you, and you'll see the text in a second. It's from Sue Studio, and he wants to know, I've been using a pick technique that has the pick extending out from the tip of my index finger, not the first knuckle curved back towards the palm. Do you foresee any issues with that down the road, with speed, accuracy, etc.?
So I'm guessing more like this, maybe, than this. So that's the way I hold it. You're probably holding it kind of like this more. No, I think there are some great players who kind of hold the pick that way, and they do it really well. And I don't think that's a problem. It would be for me because this is natural to me to hold it like this. That's natural to me. But whatever feels natural to you, really, I don't think it could be a problem down the road. If it's comfortable to you now, as you're practicing your technique, that position is going to kind of become second nature. It's going to become more and more comfortable. I think it's fine. I will say, though, if you're a new player, meaning maybe a year-old player, still give it a try. Give other ways of holding the pick a try, and try to force yourself to stick to one way of playing for maybe at least a week before you decide, because something that might be uncomfortable first might be the way to go. But if you're really comfortable with that position, that's totally fine.
All right, guys, we're out of questions, so we're going to give you a minute or two to type in some new questions. It would be really awesome if there was some brave soul here who wanted to do a video call. All you need is the Chrome browser and a webcam, and Jason will post you a link. It's super easy. You can ask Dave anything you want. You can show him how you're doing with the exercises. You could get on and jam for all of us. We would just love to have you call in. If not, type out the questions, and if we don't have any new questions in about 2 or 3 minutes, we are going to call it a night, and we will see you in the next week. So just let us know.
And just a reminder that all these sessions can be watched again. They are on the archive, so you can go back. If there's a section you missed, if you had to go pee during the session, you can watch it again. And you can just work on these. And of course, you can download the tabs too, which are really useful. And there's a few backing tracks, which are basically glorified metronome tracks. Nothing fancy, because really the focus is the drills here. But you'll find 3 different tempos. But really, if you want to make the most of this, find a metronome, whether a hardware metronome or there's apps too that you can use. And that'll really keep you accountable.
Well, we've got somebody who says that he's going to try to go live, so we'll give them a minute to figure it out and to get connected.
Great.
In the meantime, people are giving you some great comments.
Thank you.
Somebody was asking if you could play a song before we leave for the day, so that's up to you, my friend.
I won't play a song, but I'll just play.
Okay. Well, Dave can play a little bit while we're waiting to see if this person connects. If you guys have any other questions, be sure to type them out. We can kind of interrupt the playing.
Sorry, it's really dry as far as the sound, but that's what you want.
Well, it seems like Mr. Craig MR76, the brave soul who's going to call in, is having some problems with giving Chrome permission to use his webcam. So we'll give him another minute. And if it doesn't work, unfortunately, we will have to... Oh, here he is. Give us just 1 sec. All right, Craig, I don't know if you can hear us. We don't have video, but I thought I could hear your audio. Oh, doesn't sound like we have any audio just yet.
Okay, no problem.
All right, Craig, unless the permissions start working real quick for you, we probably will have to call it a day. If you want, we can work with you before the next session to try and figure it out. If that would help you.
If you have a question, you can post it, and I will be happy to answer it now or even next time.
Any last text questions, friends? Or does anyone else want to try to call in? If not, we are going to call it an evening. So last chance. And a big shout out to Craig for trying.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like we got Craig's video feed up. Just 1 second, folks. All right, can you guys hear each other?
Hi.
Hey, 1 sec. For some reason, we are not... Oh, there we are. The cable fell out. All right, you should be good to go now, Craig.
Gotta love live stuff.
Yeah, nice. Hi.
For some reason we are not. Okay, so all I was trying to do was, let me see here, I'll shut this off. So I guess all I'm really wondering about is the stretch. It seems like I usually can do not that going up, but then descending, it seems like once I'm into trying to switch the position from that other down, when I get back down to here. Right now, I always want to play the middle finger because it just happens to be sitting right there. But I know I'm supposed to try to shift over to get that ring finger in there. So I guess that's really what, I guess I just need to keep working on it.
Yeah. Keep working on it, but now that I see the issue, it's not that much of a big deal, I think. The only thing that it might do that you don't want is that it's gonna, because it's not consistent with going up, there might be like something in your fingers that kind of tell your brain that, ooh, that's a mistake, and that's gonna slow you down. But as far as the sound and the tone and the actual technique, I don't think it's a wrong thing. I don't think it's that bad of a problem. So yeah, just keep working at it, but don't feel that it's, you know, I'm not playing it right because I'm not using the right, you know, the right fingering.
But as far as the sound,
I wouldn't worry too much about it. I know there's a lag too, a little bit of lag.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag. Craig, is that all you needed, or was there anything else you'd like to ask? All right, he says thumbs up.
Thanks so much for
we're good to go.
Being the brave one.
Yes, thank you indeed. So yeah, just a note to everyone else, as obviously you could tell he was having to turn his speakers down. If you do call in, it's best if you have headphones. It's not a requirement, but it does help. All right, well, folks, any other questions? Last chance.
It was really a pleasure to be here, as it is all the time. We're in week 4. Next week we are almost halfway. Well, I guess we kind of will be halfway in our 10-week boot camp. And next week, same time, bring your guitars. And it's going to be fun.
Goodbye, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you next week.